The iPhone 13 and 13 Pro have just been released last week. Let's have a look in this video whether or not these devices are a valid option when deciding for a camera to film your underwater adventures. Coming up. Hi and welcome back to the Underwater Filmmaking School. It's good to have you back here with us. If you're new here, my name is Matthias. I'm an underwater cinematographer and filmmaker based in Zurich, Switzerland. And here on this channel we talk about anything to do with filming underwater. Now, as I was going through the specs of the newly released iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro, I was wondering, especially looking at the specs of the new cameras that are going to be built into these smartphones, I was wondering whether these cameras are actually going to be a good option to film underwater. Apple says that the camera capabilities of the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 Pro has increased dramatically to the previous models. So I was wondering whether or not it might be time for myself as well to upgrade to a new iPhone and leave my old iPhone 7 that I've been using for the past several years behind. Now, as I was looking through the specs of the new cell phones and cameras and specifically, there was actually three things that caught my mind and that I want to briefly mention and discuss here with you. First of all, with the Pro model, you'll get a ultra-wide and a wide lens, which Apple says have been improved in their low light sensibility and their low light performance. And this is obviously a good thing when filming underwater. Also, with the ultra-wide lens, you'll now get a macro mode, which is quite interesting because you can get really close to your object and you will be still able to focus on your object within a minimum focusing distance of 2 centimeters, which is incredible. Think about all the cool shots that you can get with this of small critters and maybe even corals and all that sort of stuff. The second thing that I find very interesting is their cinematic mode that they're introducing with the iPhone 13. Now, for the very first time, you will be able to achieve a shallow depth of field on a smartphone and with a smartphone camera. And this, I think, can be very interesting when filming underwater to get your main object that is in the foreground crispy sharp and have the background blurred out, which wasn't really possible with, let's say, most sort of point and shoot action cameras, all that sort of stuff. You'd really needed a larger camera to be able to achieve such a look underwater until now. If the iPhone 13 Pro really delivers on being able to separate the background from the foreground in such a way as they were promising, then I think this can be a really big deal for filming underwater. Another interesting feature with the cinematic mode is that you will be able to decide where you want to have your focus point in post-production. So you don't need to decide which part of the image should be in focus and which one should be blurred out while you're recording, but you can do that later on in post-production. This is something incredible. I don't quite know how Apple wants to achieve this, but if it really works, it's gonna be something very cool to have. And last but not least, feature number 3 that I'm really excited about is the integration and the option of recording in ProRes codec on the Pro version of the iPhone 13. Now, I think that this is going to be fantastic. It should give you a larger dynamic range on your footage, and it should also make it much easier to grade and color correct your footage, just giving you more leeway in the color correction and the grading department when you bring your footage into post-production. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to as well, and I can't wait to try that out and see whether that ProRes codec is really as good on the new iPhone 13 Pro as it is on other cameras. So after having looked through all these new features of the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro and contemplating a little bit about it, I've actually made the decision to go for the iPhone 13 Pro, and I pre-ordered one for myself, which should be delivered within the next couple of days, and I can't wait to take it underwater and see whether or not this really is a game changer in underwater videography when it comes to a small compact smartphone camera. Now, I'm not saying that it will replace my larger professional rig, but it might be something very cool, especially for people who don't want to carry around a huge rig with them when traveling, but want to have a nice compact and small system that they can take with them, and that will still produce very decent looking footage when filming underwater. Now, I do have a housing, which is the dive fork housing that I've made a review about just a couple of weeks ago. If you've missed that, I'll link it up here in the corner. You can go and check it out. And I'm definitely going to use that to test the iPhone 13 Pro for the first time underwater. If you do know of any other housings though that you prefer or that you like for taking your smartphone underwater and using it to take photos and film underwater, please do let me know down in the video or in the comment section, I better say, below. I'll be more than happy to check those housing options out as well. And I would also like to know what you think about the new iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. Do you think it's really going to be a game changer for filming underwater and taking photos below the surface? Also, are you thinking about getting yourself an iPhone 13 or 13 Pro and maybe even capturing your next underwater adventures using the camera in the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro? Please let me know down in the comment section below. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about this topic. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content about underwater filmmaking. Until next time, happy bubbles, enjoy capturing your underwater adventures, and I will see you in the next video.